Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 756B, and today's date is September 2nd, 2015, and the title of this episode is U.S. Military Training Events Spread Across Europe in Preparation for War. Now, before we get started, I just want to make an announcement. Tomorrow, Thursday, I'll be uploading an interview with Rob Kirby. If you're on the X22 Report email alert system, I will send you an email. If you have signed up to the X22 Report Spotlight channel, YouTube should send you an email. If not, you can come right to YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight, and you'll be able to see the video there. Or you can come to the X22Report.com site. You'll see the video on the right-hand side. Let's get right into the economic collapse geopolitical news. Now, I wanted to talk about free speech. And I put the article on the X22Report.com site. And I've been talking about this for quite a while, where the government, the elite, central bank, they've been trying to do away with the Constitution and the rights of the people. And we see right now that they're using basically political correctness, safety concerns, bullying, national security, hate crimes to control free speech. And right now, we understand that we do have the freedom of speech anywhere in this country. It's not designated to an area or anything like that. There's no free speech zones. There's no 100 miles in from the border saying this is a constitutional free zone where you don't have the right to speak freely. We have the right to speak freely anywhere in the United States. And we see a lot of universities, a lot of cities, towns, trying to control free speech by setting up certain areas where you can speak freely. Or, in a lot of universities, we see that they are changing what is acceptable as free speech. I mean, officials at the University of Tennessee, for instance, recently introduced an Orwellian policy that would prohibit students from using gender-specific pronouns and be more inclusive by using gender-neutral pronouns such as sie, hier, zir, them, rather than he, she, him, or her. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. More than 50% of the nation's colleges, including Boston University, Harvard University, Columbia University, Georgetown University, subscribe to the red light speech policies. And what is that? Well, that restricts or bans the so-called offensive speech, or limits speakers to designated areas on campus. Actually, comedians like Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, they're starting to refuse to perform stand-up routines to college crowds anymore because of what is happening in the colleges, because everyone is offended by everything. So you can't speak freely. And to add all of this up, unarmed citizens are being shot, stripped, searched, choked, beaten, tasered by police for little more than daring to frown, smile, question, challenge, in order, or just breathe. Does that sound free to you? No. The First Amendment provides no tangible protection against a gun wielded by a government agent, nor will it save you from being wrongly arrested or illegally searched. Think about why the Founding Fathers put our first right, freedom of speech, up there, freedom of assembly, and the second one, the right to bear arms. You think they did this because they knew when you start to lose the right of free speech, there's no way to push back unless you have a weapon. Because you can't protest. You can't speak freely. So what alternatives do you have when a tyrannical government is taking away your right to have free speech? Well, that would be force. That would be a weapon to say, You cannot do this to us. This is why they did this. And we're seeing right now that this entire society we're living in, not just the United States, it's in Canada, it's in throughout Europe, Australia, the same thing is happening. Why do you think the UN and why do you think the United States is pushing so hard to get the treaty passed that will take weapons away from the people? Because they've been trying for years. Think about how long they've been trying. And we're seeing all these little mass shootings, which we know most of them are complete false flag events. And they're continually having them pop up everywhere to try to push people into completely banning weapons. And if that doesn't work, they will use a huge one to push it through. This is what they've been doing for years. There's 2,000 plus laws on the book which are infringing on the Second Amendment. Think about that for a second. Why are they trying so hard? Well, the reason is, once they get rid of that, a population that cannot defend itself is a controllable population. The end, period. Now, we understand out in North Korea, South Korea, with the United States, has been provoking North Korea with the loudspeaker systems, screaming insults to North Korea, hoping that North Korea would do something. And right after the incident, we saw South Korea increasing their military budget. We saw the United States bring in B-2 bombers to Guam. We see they change their plans to be more aggressive when something happens. And we're seeing more provocation towards North Korea. They want North Korea to do something because they realize that's the country that would actually go ahead and do something where they can blame it on them. I mean, if they don't do something, they could just create a false flag and then blame it on them. But they're hoping by continually provoking North Korea, they will slip up and do something and we will have all-out war. And we're starting to see this. I mean, South Korea is saying that North Korea apologized for a mine explosion. And North Korea says, they expressed regret. South Korea said, thank you for the apology. North Korea said, we didn't apologize. We said this is regret. Doesn't mean an apology. And South Korea says, yes, it does. And it's just a complete provoking nature of South Korea, driven by the United States, to push them into doing something. And we're continually seeing this. Because they know they need to start this war to cover up this major collapse. We see out in Ukraine is piling up their gas reserves from Slovakia. 72% is now coming from Slovakia. They're using the reverse flow right now. They cut off the gas from Russia. They cut off the electricity from Russia. They removed the agreement they had for military cooperation. And they're separating themselves from Russia right now because they're getting ready, prepared to go after the southeastern region and Crimea, and they need to separate themselves from completely everything. Now, we're seeing a lot of skirmishes that are going on. People are saying the Minsk II agreement is completely dead. The Normandy 4 are trying to hold it together. It's not working out too well. And Kiev is waiting for Parliament to agree to the debt restructuring proposal. And they're saying if they don't agree, they're going to have to default. And we can see Yatsenyuk has been pressuring Russia to accept the debt restructuring and to accept receiving less than what's owed to them, hoping that Russia will turn around and do something. And what's very interesting about all of this, and we know there is a huge amount of corruption. We know the central bankers have been basically stealing the natural resources in Ukraine. But we see the same old thing happening time and time again. Through an investigative report, all that money that the IMF gave Ukraine, the US gave Ukraine, well, it looks like the oligarchs have been siphoning it off. And they found 17 billion of it in a Cyprus bank account. And I wouldn't be surprised if Yatsenyuk, Poroshenko, and others all siphon the money away. Just like when the coup d'etat was happening and they captured Kiev, the Fed flew in their black cargo jets and they loaded up the plane with the gold from Ukraine. And as soon as the coup d'etat was over, we see Biden, his son was put on the board of directors of the gas company in Ukraine. John Kerry's friend was put on the board. And we see that Ukraine, through the central bankers, are selling off pieces of Ukraine to corporations. Right now, we see Ukraine, from an official defense doctrine, has named Russia as their military adversary. Not really surprising here. Ukraine is also officially dropping its non-aligned status and placing itself on course to join NATO because this was part of the plan. We see Russia is getting ready to establish an airbase in Belarus. And we see Belarus is basically sandwiched between Russia, Ukraine, Poland, Latvia. And it is a fantastic strategic location. And what they're going to do is they're going to house the Su-27 fighter jets, and they will all be based there because they realize eventually war is coming and they are getting prepared for this. India is upgrading their military helicopters, and it's going to cost them about $1.1 billion, and their deal is with Russia. They're bringing in 48 Mi-17 V5 military transport helicopters, and they already have 300 Mi-8 and Mi-17 helicopters in their fleet. Russia is right now having a large mass destruction defense drill, and they're practicing for some type of chemical, biological, or nuclear type of weapon hitting Russia. They have over 1,200 servicemen, around 200 pieces of special equipment from the radiation, chemical, and biological defense troops drilling to prepare for this. Do they know something we don't at this point? We understand that Russia is making their move towards the Arctic. So is the United States, Canada, because we know that is a strategic location and there are gas deposits in this area, and everyone is making their claim. We see the White House now is one vote shy of a veto-proof majority on the Iran deal. And again, this Iran deal is nothing to do with nuclear weapons. It has everything to do with the central bank and placing the dollar on their natural resources. That's what that deal is about. Because if you look back over the 30 years, Iran has been making a nuclear weapon, and they have always been 3 to 5 months out from having it. And guess what? It's been 30 years, nothing. And they are not creating a nuclear weapon because the IAEA has been inspecting. They said absolutely not. There is no sign of it whatsoever. The NPT, they signed it. And a lot of the documentation calling out Iran about these nuclear weapons, they're turning out to be forged. So the U.S. government central bankers knew to keep this system propped up, they needed to get into all the Middle East countries, put all their natural resources on the dollar, then get into Syria, then Iran. Their goal has always been the same. Tactics are just changed a little bit. We see the U.S. military is sponsoring training events across Europe. Why are they doing this? In Eastern Europe, Washington seeks to strengthen its presence in region all over Europe. Why? Because they're getting prepared to deal with Russia. Now, is Russia going to attack anyone? No. But they know once they start the war, and when I say they, the United States government central bankers, they know Russia will retaliate. This is why they've been spending $1 billion on the European reassurance initiatives $925 million on other drills like Atlantic Resolve, because they are getting ready and prepared for war. That is it. And they're making sure that everything is ready to go. We see the immigration problem in Europe is getting worse. Remember, we are at war right now. The Middle East is a complete disaster. Northern Africa is a complete disaster. Ukraine, a disaster. And we see a lot of refugees. And right now, Italy is saying, you know something? We might have to suspend the Schengen agreement, which allowed borderless travel within Europe. Now they want to raise the borders up again, because they realize, and we saw this during World War I and World War II, where there are refugees that are traveling from country to country to get away from the fighting. This is what we're seeing right now. The Czechs, they're saying they want to close their borders. It's funny. They all want to close their borders. Here in the United States, we're letting illegals come into the United States without deporting them. The situation is getting worse. We are already in World War. We just haven't had the big bang yet, where the governments come out and say, yes, we are in World War III. Yemen, the people there are suffering. Yemen is buckling under the Saudi airstrikes. Just in the last week or two, 100 civilians were killed. But what's funny about this is the U.S. government central bankers don't come out and say, oh my God, 100 civilians were just killed in the bombing runs from Saudi Arabia. But in Syria, where they had no proof whatsoever, when they were reporting there were 100 people that were killed from Assad, they were all over that. But the bombings from Saudi Arabia, which is orchestrated by the United States, quiet, nothing. We see the puppet government in Libya is still trying to woo the other countries to do business with them and buy the oil from them using the dollar. But the countries are recognizing the government that's in Tripoli, and they're not using the dollar. So the puppet government right now has said, we are no longer going to allow Yemenis, Iranians, Pakistanis, Sudanese, Bangladesh, Palestinians, or Syrians into Libya. They're banning all of these people because they're trying to stop the flow of weapons to the government of Libya. And this is not the puppet government. This is the people-elected government in Tripoli. So they're trying to lock down Libya right now, not allowing access to pretty much anyone at this point. And we know eventually, when this continually gets out of control, they will go into this area. They're going to go into all of these countries, the United States government central bankers. This is why the authorization for war is pending in Congress. They're just waiting to use it. And when the right time comes, we will see that event, and they will use it because it allows them to go after any terrorist organization into any country. We see CIA Director Petreaus is out there saying, oh, we should give weapons to al-Qaeda. Well, we've already been doing that covertly. We're giving weapons to the Islamic State. We're giving weapons to al-Qaeda. I guess he just wants to make it on the up and up, saying, okay, now we're really giving to them, and now we're supporting al-Qaeda because, what, they're no longer terrorists anymore? I mean, think about what's going on here. The story is getting so muddied right now that they can't keep their story straight. One minute the Islamic State is the terrorist, next minute it's al-Qaeda. All of these are CIA operations. Both groups are running under the United States government. And they don't want anyone to know about it. And now they're trying to bring it out there saying, okay, maybe we should have them fight the Islamic State. Which we know they're going to give the weapons to them to fight who? Assad. That's what this is really all about. The Islamic State will have weapons. Al-Qaeda will have more weapons. They'll be able to get to Assad. Syria has complained to the UN about Turkey supporting terrorism. And of course, we know they are. They train, they house the Islamic State. We see the United States government central bankers are using water as a weapon in Syria. Right now, the International Committee of the Red Cross says the civilian population in the city of Aleppo is undergoing enormous suffering because of deliberate cuts to water and electric. They are punishing the people, making them suffer. They're doing the same thing in Damascus. They're squeezing Syria, trying to make Assad say, okay, I give. This is what's happening here. The CIA and U.S. Special Forces have now launched a secret drone campaign in Syria. What do you think they're going after? Do you really think they're going after the Islamic State? No. They're going after the forces of Assad. Special infrastructure targets. Special Syrian army leaders. And the Central Intelligence Agency and the U.S. Joint Special Operations Command are both flying armed drones in Syria right now. And going back to the explosion in China, in the Shandong area, we just saw an explosion now in Tokyo at a chemical plant. And this was in southern Japan. And what's very odd is that this explosion happened yesterday. And it seems like we're going back and forth because this is a lot of chemical explosions in completely two different areas. So something is going on here, and it feels like the war has begun. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.